Hello, my name is Mira Bott, and I'm a junior at Montgomery High School in New Jersey. Welcome back to the interview series on colleges and careers, where I talk to established professionals from a wide range of careers to learn and gain a well-rounded understanding about different careers and different pathways to success. Today, I'm so honored and super excited to be speaking with Mr. Len DeCandia, the Global Chief Procurement Officer at Johnson & Johnson. As Chief Procurement Officer, he is responsible for all global procurement policies, including supplier-based strategy development, practices such as relationship management, and functional headcount. Mr. DeCandia has previously held supply chain leadership roles at companies such as Roche Pharmaceuticals, AmerisourceBergen, and Estée Lauder Companies. Having his undergraduate degree in mechanical engineering and an MBA from Rutgers University, he has also served as a chair of the Rutgers Business School Supply Chain Management Center for many years and is currently a member of the Rutgers Business School Advisory Board and is also an adjunct professor and teaches a graduate course in innovation management. Welcome, Mr. DeCandia. I'm so excited to speak with you today. Okay, hello, Mr. DeCandia. So you've had such an illustrious career thus far, reaching top positions at every company you've been at, and you continue to do so. So how would you summarize your career journey so far?
Well, I think people have an impression that your career is a linear straight line, but that's probably not the reality of it. I think, your career has many points where you take some turns, and I think a lot of that is just not only how you feel or believe what you're doing is exciting and is going to make you feel fulfilled, but I think in what's happening in the world around you, and you're always dealing with change. Technology is constantly changing the way work is done and how work is done. And I think even the social aspects have changed pretty dramatically in terms of the majority of my career has been a broader globalization of many, many companies. But now we're at a bit of a turn where countries are looking at their trade policies, and they're also looking at their own infrastructure, and they're changing their investments. And I think the investments in countries like the United States are going to change pretty dramatically over the next decade, coming through this quite unfortunate pandemic. Mm-hmm. So I think you have to be a bit of an opportunist as well. You have to recognize what you enjoy doing and what you're good at. And if what you're good at and what you enjoy doing is something that is valued, that's a perfect fit. And so sometimes you make those changes to better align with that.
Well, that's really helpful. So thank you. But what I'm still a little bit curious about is how you entered this career and ended up in healthcare and procurement and supply chain. Was that just by chance, or how did that happen?
Yeah, I think for any or all of us, I think one of the things you need to be is a bit of an opportunist and very fortunate. Right. So I ended up in healthcare. I went to school at Rutgers University, which is based in New Brunswick. Mm-hmm. And I interviewed with 3 companies when I graduated. I graduated as a mechanical engineer. Mm-hmm. When I was younger, I was really interested in engineering because I had grown up in the 60s and the 70s. So I was in high school in the mid 70s, and it was a pretty dramatic time, just like today is a pretty dramatic time socially and what was happening in the world. I just missed being drafted by the Vietnam War. Mm-hmm. But I had a bit of an intervention. My parents are both immigrants from Europe, and so I was first to go to college in my family. But when I was younger, because of what was happening in the space race, mm-hmm. There was a lot of emphasis on math. And so I ended up just being good at math and was skipped a couple of times in school through math. And all of a sudden, you start to become tracked towards, one of the sciences if you're good in math. So that's how I ended up in engineering. And Johnson & Johnson is right across the street from Rutgers. And they only hired 1 or 2 engineers a year from Rutgers. And so I felt, well, that means they're pretty picky in who they want, and maybe they're pretty good at what they do. Right. So I interviewed with them and ended up starting my career there. When I started my career, I was doing engineering on a board with pencil and paper. There were no personal computers, none of those.
Right.
And so as I progressed in my career in the 80s, the computer started to be introduced into our lives. And what I do for a living today, supply chain management, didn't exist in those days. But the computer created this new science of supply chain management.
Right.
And so what started to happen was companies started to move away from traditional heavy manufacturing and started to become more global, started to collaborate more, started to work with partners both upstream and downstream, and use the computer as a way of people kind of working and interacting with each other. And so that's how I basically kind of evolved in supply chain and was a bit of a pioneer in all of this. Back in the early 2000s, I actually helped to start what is now called the Center of Supply Chain Management at Rutgers. And so I was the founding chair of that. There was no department, it was just a couple of courses. And very pleased to tell you that today it's the second largest supply chain management program in the United States and one of the globally recognized. But along the way, I went to a few other companies before I came back to Johnson & Johnson. I worked in the pharmaceutical industry for a number of years, and most recently in the consumer industry with a company called Estée Lauder. And it's very exciting. I think so. I was always interested in two or three things. One, I'm a bit restless, so I'm always interested in what's new and exciting, and I guess that comes with curiosity. And always we're looking for a way that I could continue to do what I enjoy doing. Looked for companies that saw value in the type of work that I enjoy doing, and look for companies that were investing in teams and in technology that would allow us to continue to move forward. And ended up coming back to Johnson & Johnson after being away almost 17 years. And I've been there almost 8 years now. And it's a bit of an interesting perspective for me, having worked at other companies and coming back. But they asked me to come back to help them really advance some of their practices with technology and with organization. So I really, I encourage young people who have an interest around manufacturing, how things work. And many of you have recognized through this pandemic the importance of the supply chain, with empty shelves or not being able to get products or services executed around the world. So we're going to see, I think, a significant amount of investment in this area in all industries, in pharmaceuticals, in auto, and other industries. And one of the things I think that's really exciting about the next 10 or 20 years is that sustainability is going to be a big part.
Yeah.
How we invest in technology. I know it's a big part of my job now around social impact. So I do a lot of work in working with diverse, minority-owned and women-owned businesses to help elevate the communities in those spaces. I do a lot of work with my suppliers on eliminating the carbon footprint and finding new practices and introducing, recyclable products into the system. So if you're interested in how products are made and developed and delivered, and you're interested in making the world a better place, and you want to be part of it, supply chain management is just a wonderful place to be. And healthcare is so important because, as we've all learned and continue to learn around the world, because this unfortunate pandemic, is a long way from over for many of the people around the world that we love and care for. It all begins with our health. Human health is the beginning of everything. And so it's a very purposeful journey in terms of being able to help care for other people and bring value in that way. So I've been very, very fortunate in that in my career, whenever I've reached any of these crossroads, I was able to find an opportunity to contribute and to help a team contribute, because I think there's no greater joy than being part of a team and watching the team be successful or be able to contribute and make a difference. And, I think sports or other teams, debate teams, those are great experiences for young people when you're in high school, because I think that's one of the very important skills that we all need to have, as well as how to work well with others and be a team player and collaborate. You can't be a great leader until you are a great team player.
Right. Well, it's so interesting to hear how your career evolved through the years as things in the world were changing with, new technology and such. And also for all the little nuggets of advice that you mentioned, that's also really helpful. So just wanted to clarify before we move on to the next point. So for my friends and other fellow students who might be unfamiliar with the term supply chain, would you be able to just explain it in your own words?
Yeah, I think the supply chain is fundamentally how you deliver your product or service to your end customer. So it always begins with the customer. So it's all of the steps and all of the various elements that are associated with it. So at a high level, it's planning. How do I plan the ability to deliver my product to my customer? Then in many, many cases, in order to do that, you need to work with different vendors who make the different ingredients or the different parts or components that go into making your product. And then you have the logistics aspect over that, right? So you make it, and then you have to be able to deliver it. And the deliver aspects could be ground transportation, air transportation, sea transportation, and all the various warehousing that happens in between. So whether it's in my case, making Band-Aids or making drugs or making sutures in a hospital to making automobiles and all that. Now, supply chain isn't just the manufacture of a product. Many times it's services as well. So if you're in the airline industries, how do you establish the network and how do you put together the various airports that you work from? How big should the planes be? What's the normal? So there's a lot of the logistics of being able to either move people or move products and deliver goods and services. And it's become very sophisticated. Probably the two largest supply chain companies that many of your colleagues might know are Amazon and Alibaba, right? And so with Amazon, I think we live in a world today where we get immediate satisfaction. We can go right into the computer, we can shop, we can manage everything from the payment through your whatever you're using, your credit card or PayPal or whatever else, and lo and behold, within 24 hours or less, and maybe a couple of days, the product ends up on your front door. So there's a lot of sophistication and a lot of detail goes into that. But you want to do it at the most convenient way for your customer, at the best price, at the highest quality. And you obviously have to be able to do it in a way that you're able to make not only profit for yourself, but profit for your partners that are helping you being able to deliver it. So it's become extremely sophisticated and requires a lot of math behind all of that relative to all of the various formulas that go into being able to deal with something that's unpredictable. Because if you're in the area like fashion, something might become really exciting all of a sudden, but the window to be able to meet that need is very, very small. And so to be able to deliver it, can you manage a peak of product or delivery, or something might become outdated very fast, and then you end up with a lot of leftover inventory that you need to discard. So it's very sophisticated, but very exciting because you can work on all these various elements. You can work in any industry. An industry that's really exciting to you, and learn so much, and still be part of this broader science. And it's an area that has incredible growth. I know at Rutgers, I'm the vice chair of our business school board. At Rutgers, the supply chain program has the highest SAT scores of all of the programs, even higher than the engineering school. Because it's just an area where there's a lot of enthusiasm for young people to get involved in. And it's an area where you can have a long career and work in many industries, and do some exciting, and you can work anywhere in the world, which is very exciting. And if you take a look at executives, Tim Cook, who is the CEO of Apple, which is one of the largest companies in the world, was once the chief supply officer for Apple. So before, it wasn't necessarily a place where you can go right to the CEO office, but as the world is starting to change and more sophisticated, for some of your young colleagues who have really high aspirations, I think it's an area where even if it's not your full career, but a part of your learning, should be in an area like this. And it's only going to become more important with what the world has experienced over the past 18 months.
Wow, that's really interesting to hear about how supply chain is really a part of our lives in so many ways, and maybe we don't think about it. I like the example of Amazon because, I think a lot of us use that in our daily lives, and we don't think about like, oh, wow, this product maybe had to travel from this place to this place. And there's so many people behind the scenes putting that together so that within 24 hours, when I order something, it shows up at my door. So that's really interesting. And I think I wanted to jump off the point that you mentioned about how the world is changing due to COVID. So I've been reading a lot about how the supply chain, like, I can't speak, resiliency. Resiliency. There we go.
Right. Yes, resiliency.
Yeah, through COVID, and how the supply chain was like strong, and our dependence on so many like global countries like China for so many different products. So I would love to get some thoughts from, given your position, on how is Johnson & Johnson having to change different things because of COVID, or how are you guys dealing with such a pandemic that was not, planned or expected?
Yeah. Well, I think risk is very, very important in a role like mine, especially when you think about the fact that we make so many life-saving drugs, right? So the last thing that you want to have happen is not being able to provide a life-saving drug to one of your patients, who are, the most important part of who you are and what you do. And I think part of it was how you were prepared for something that was unpredictable like this. And so I spent the past half dozen years putting in a lot of technology to make sure that the relationship between Johnson & Johnson and our many, many suppliers around the world didn't have a lot of friction in it, so that we were working from the same data, that it was clear who the key contacts were in both organizations. We were sharing data and insights along the way. And I think those companies who were investing in technology and investing in relationships before the pandemic did better than those who did not. And I think what the pandemic has done is it's really elevated those practices. So many companies who were thinking about investing in those relationships and thinking about investing in those technologies are now accelerating their investments. And so for us, building upon where we were, how we've worked our way through it, what we're trying to do is to kind of look at what's the next generation look like. Right. And I use the word agility as opposed to resiliency. And I think agility is more about how quickly can you learn and how quickly can you respond to something that's happening at a particular point in time. And I think that agility is really dependent upon how well you're collaborating and working with your network and understanding how they collaborate and work with their suppliers as well. So I think one of the things we're trying to do is so we have over 130,000 people who work at Johnson & Johnson. We work with over 50,000 suppliers, right? Wow. But we're trying to elevate everybody at Johnson & Johnson's skills and how to best work with their suppliers, understanding their suppliers, being clear on their needs, knowing who to talk to, when, how to share information. Because our hope is if everyone in the company has an ability to work very closely with their suppliers, or they're almost on an immediate need standpoint, then it allows us to be able to respond that much quicker. And so we have the world's largest cloud-based procurement system in place around the world. We operate in over 60 countries. We buy in over 60 countries. And we use that network whenever necessary to be able to find product. I'll give you an example. Very recently, it's still very tragic what's happening in India right now. Mm-hmm. And we have a number of our colleagues there, a number of our critical customers and patients there, a number of our suppliers there. We're a global company. They're part of our global family. And there was an oxygen shortage about 3 weeks ago in India. And we were doing everything we possibly can, partnering with other companies or partnering with our suppliers to be able to either get oxygen down there or oxygen generators. And we were able to tie into our global network around the world almost immediately so that we can find where there was any of these oxygen generators around the world and immediately ship them into India. And first for our colleagues and their family members who are ill, but then for the communities down there and for others. So being able to be digitally integrated and to be able to be pretty much understanding the value of relationships and how to best manage and collaborate across those relationships, I think make organizations more able to deal with the unpredictable because it allows everyone to come together quickly, work from the same information and the same data, and instead of kind of competing with each other to move everything ahead, work with each other, knowing everybody's strengths and working together for a common goal and creating a better platform for collaboration. And I think a platform for collaboration means everybody's working from the same information and everybody has a respect and appreciation for what skills and what talents they bring and how they're going to work together in their talents to be able to move things forward. And I apologize for the sports analogy, but if you've ever watched little kids play soccer or football, they all go where the ball is, right?
Yeah.
But really good teams know where everyone should be and anticipates where everyone should be, and that becomes more strategic. And I think in the supply chain, knowing how all the partners are working together and using all common information allows them to work through all of that. For me, the pandemic started in China because China is a huge market for us. We have a number of our colleagues there, a number of suppliers and patients there. And one of the first things we had to get was personal protection equipment. And in January of 2020, when that immediately happened, that's what we did. We within 24 to 48 hours, we were able to get our network of buyers that were fully integrated around the world to align, to be able to find inventory, align inventory of PP and move into inventory to where it was needed to keep our plants open, to keep our supplier plants open so that we can continue to deliver life-saving drugs, as well as support the communities where our patients and customers were. And to this day, we continue to be able to do that. So for young people, this whole concept of digital and digital integration and the partnering and teamwork that goes along with it are two incredible skills for the future. And I think that's what we're going to continue to see an amazing amount of growth relative to opportunities and exciting opportunities for all of you.
Wow, well, it's really interesting to hear about how the importance of a network and how that really comes into play in critical times, and especially how the part about how everyone's skills can be utilized in a different way. So I think that you've already covered my next question, but I wanted to ask, what do you think the future of the supply chain industry is?
Sure. Well, I think people were concerned initially with the growth of companies like Amazon and Alibaba, that they were going to be disconnected from the customer and the patient, right? So let's start with the customer. I think the future of supply chain is all about the customer. It's always all about the customer. And put yourself in the position of being a customer. So you want to have your immediate needs satisfied in a custom way, right? You don't necessarily want something that everyone else has. You might have a unique color, unique size, unique way you want that delivered to you. So I think as the technology continues to evolve, I think the customer becomes much more knowledgeable about what's available, how the product or the service is being performed. So you can buy what you need from, and because everyone is going to tell you their experiences and they're going to share those experiences, so you're going to become much more knowledgeable in that. And so the supply chain is really about how do you continue to meet the customer's needs as they continue to evolve relative to customization, quality, and value. But also there might be opportunities where there are unmet needs out there. So how can you bring new innovative ways of satisfying some of those unmet needs, value that people weren't even aware of yesterday, that's going to allow you to differentiate your product or service from others. So if you put yourself in the situation or in the position of the customer and you start to think about how you like to buy, and some people like to buy in systems and not experience. Some people like to buy in systems, but they want to have an experience that go along with that. So there could be virtual interaction, or they could be, interaction. So, Parker Warby basically says, you don't have to come to our store. We'll send you 5 different, you can see which one works for you and you come back. Other people like to go to the store. They want to see the fit. They want to get the feel. And, same thing with automobiles. Some people want to go to a showroom, take it for a test ride. Other people just go online, buy what they want, and it shows up at their front door. So I think the definition of the future of supply chain is really about the customer and more customization and more ways of meeting those needs around delivery to the customer. And that goes for things in the healthcare industry as well. We're becoming more sophisticated in the products that we manufacture. If you look at areas like cancer drugs, we're looking at new technologies that instead of blasting someone with chemotherapy or radiation, actually activating the person's immune system and having a very focused way of dealing with disease, right? And that's an element of customization as well. So very exciting around the concept of customization. And then I think when you think about the supply chain and you think about sustainability, I think the supply chain has a significant contribution on the environment and making the environment more sound, whether that's in power delivery or product delivery and all else. So, I'm really excited about the mindset of young people today, because I think young people today want to have a career where there's a purpose in what they do. So they want to be doing something that excites them. What usually excites you is something that you're very good at. Mm-hmm. And you want to be working on something that excites you, you're good at, and it's making the world a better place. And I think you have a chance, many chances to do that in a space like this. I always tease my marketing friends when I say, you sell the first product, but we sell everyone after that. Because when someone goes to the store or they want to buy it, it better be at the quality that they experienced the first time, and it better be at the price that they prefer, and it better be available to them. Because many times if you go back and it's not there, you'll lose a customer for life. And so this will continue to grow. And I think companies are finding ways to work with the Amazons and the Alibabas around the world, where they're mixing this ability to deliver as one way, but they also recognize people look at other ways they want to interact with companies, and they want to work for companies that aren't just interested in making a profit. They want to work for companies that are making the world a better place, and they're very visible and very vocal about why they want to make the world a better place.
Right. Well, thank you. I think that was a wonderful answer. And maybe you gave us the golden formula. You said something you're good at, something you enjoy, and something that makes the world a better place.
And something that people value, because you have to make money.
Yes, of course.
Okay.
That's the most important one.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Well, if it's not valued, then unfortunately it puts you in a situation where and look, this is an interesting time. I mean, I'm working with 5 generations. I'm a baby boomer, right? Then you got the X, the Y, the millennials, and what's your generation's moniker now? What's the accepted Z's, right?
Yes.
Which we're learning from each other, we're challenging each other, we're appreciating what we all bring relative to perspectives, and as long as we continue to listen to each other, then I think we have a chance.
Yes. That makes a lot of sense. So, well, thank you so much for meeting with me today. I definitely found this interview super helpful, and I'm sure many others will as well. And it's great to hear and learn about the supply chain industry and, what you do and how your career has evolved. So thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you so much for this opportunity, and best of luck to all you. Have a safe summer, everyone.
Yes, thank you.